everyone and welcome to This Is Why We Fight. I'm Jo.
And I'm Jordan.
Welcome to part one of our series investigating the Behavioural Insights Team, a shadowy government department that has been experimenting on us by influencing our decisions for over a decade. We mentioned David Halpin in the last document, Professor David Halpin, the Chief Executive of the Nudge Unit. He's led the team since its inception in 2010. He was the first research director for the Institute of Government. We've already covered this. Between 2001 and 2007, he was a chief analyst at the Prime Minister's Strategy Unit. He was also appointed as the What Works National Advisor in July 2013. Before entering government, he held tenure at Cambridge and posts at Oxford and Harvard. He gets around, doesn't he? He's written several books and papers on areas relating to behavioural insights or behavioural manipulation and well-being, including social capital, the hidden wealth of nations, online harms and manipulation, and in 2019 co-authored the Mindspace Report. I wonder what the Mindspace Report is about. His last book, 2015, that we know of, was entitled Inside the Nudge Unit, How Small Changes Can Make a Big Difference. Let's have a look. Here's the Mindspace Report. As you can see, the author is David Halpin, Dominic King, Ivo Vliev, can't say that, and Michael Hallsworth. Associated Documents, Behavioural Government, Whitehall Monitor, Mindspace, Behavioural Economics, Civil Service Reform. So this is still very much government dominated.
Would you like me to read out what the acronym is?
Please do.
Do you remember what it is? I read it out earlier on.
You said it once and no. I will let you do it.
Oh, fine. Messenger, incentives, norms, defaults, salience, priming, effect, commitments, and ego.
Ego. Do they explain why those particular words are used?
They do indeed. Messenger. We are heavily influenced by who communicates information. Incentives. Our response to incentives are shaped by predictable mental shortcuts, such as strongly avoiding losses. Norms. We're strongly influenced by what others do. That is a really important thing. Defaults is also incredibly important. We go with the flow of pre-set options. Yeah, that article we just went through laid out, two examples of that.
Avoiding losses, the status quo, yeah.
Salience, our attention is drawn to what is novel and seems relevant to us. Yeah, I'm sure we can see a couple of examples with that. Priming, our acts are often influenced by subconscious clues. I would say that is the repetition that they use.
Yes.
Drilling it into you. Effect, our emotional associations with can powerfully shape our actions. Definitely. That was the guilt thing that they went on about.
Yes.
Commitments. We seek to be consistent with our public promise and... Wait a minute, the word has disappeared for me. Okay, public promise. I'm not sure what the rest of it was. Ego, rather, not ergo. Ego. We act in ways to make us feel better about ourselves.
So
I'm not sure what's going on with my PDF. Some of the words are missing suddenly.
So there's no such thing as altruism then?
Apparently not. They've already decided that.
So we do things that benefit us, that make us feel good. We avoid loss. We prefer the status quo. We prefer things that appeal to us or that affect us. We don't like to feel guilt. And we like to make a consistent public promise. That is, we like to appear to be consistent when it comes to doing the right thing. These are all massive psychological manipulations. And they're all tidily put together in one word. And this is the government. It's interesting how very benign their message is after reading all that. That they just want to do things like reduce crime, tackle obesity and ensure environmental sustainability. It's almost like Mindspace is schizophrenic.
let's be honest, this mind space thing, if the words used were a little bit more harsh, you could easily see it being an internal KGB memo.
Yeah.
Like, it just sounds like it. It's so incredibly dystopian.
Imagine all the big brains they've rounded up to make things like manipulation, experiment, guinea pigs, all into these nice pretty long words, so that should anyone stumble across this group and start looking into it, they don't really see the evil intent behind it, or the, I wouldn't say evil necessarily, certainly disingenuous, certainly harmful.
The problem is, once they've set out this framework, it would be very easy for somebody who is frankly delusional, who genuinely believes they're doing the best thing they could do for people, to step in, take over, and then use this for evil, basically. Which is what we're seeing now. We're seeing people who, on the face of it, want to do a good thing for other people, for humanity, but are just not.
Well, this explains a lot of the behaviour from certain groups in society, doesn't it? Where they will literally harm themselves in order to help others, because they have been placed under this kind of guilt trip, placed in this guilt trip position, where all of these things apply. Avoiding loss. They're convinced that they'll lose more if they don't act than they will lose if they do.
Yeah, things like the defaults.
Yeah, that's the status quo. That's literally Brexit versus Remain. Yeah. Salience. Being passionate and caring more about the things that may affect you, or the things that are most important to you. That invokes a lot of passion and a lot of pride in many people.
Yeah, affects. Emotional associations can powerfully shape our actions. They use that all the time.
Yes.
Constant. Just look at all the NHS adverts at the moment. It's pure emotion, nothing else.
Well, look at the response you get from actual people who had nothing to do with this team, how quickly they've bought into the message and use it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the snitching, the accusations, oh, you're murdering people because you won't do the thing that I want you to do. How dare you go outside without wearing a mask?
That's a really good way to put it, actually. What you just said there, you're murdering people because you won't do what I want you to do.
Well, that's what it comes down to. I mean, it starts off as a government message, but it ends up as the message of anyone who wants control over what could arguably be called the worst time in most people's lifetime. The fear. That avoiding losses thing is really important. I'm going to keep coming back to this idea of avoiding loss. This is why the lockdown has been so dangerous to people's lives. Avoiding loss, frightening people into conformity so that they avoid loss. And look what they lost anyway. There are a lot of people who took their own lives because the loss they tried to avoid, which was losing people they loved, has cost them everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that these people are selfish, but in order to safeguard your family, you've essentially given up your business. Now you can't provide for your family. It's really Hobson's choice, isn't it? And it's a terrible choice to ever inflict on a people. And yet it's been done. And there are still people that say that the government is incompetent and that none of this is deliberate.
This, to me, is the final nail in the government is incompetent argument. We've said on stream many times before, how many times do you want to say they're incompetent before you think, maybe they're not incompetent, they're actually planning it? This is black and white evidence that they're planning stuff.
Yeah.
They actually know what they're doing. They are deliberately manipulating us. But for goodness sakes, the Department of Climate Change, or whatever the hell it's called, they tried to manipulate people into buying the washing machine they decided was right. That's how insane these people are. That's how far down the road that they've gone with this nonsense. They actually think they know what is best to you to such a depth they decide where you put your socks to wash them.
And if they can coerce your buying habits, think what else they want control over. It won't be overt control. They'll never mandate these things, but they'll definitely keep nudging you into doing what they want.
Exactly, because of stuff like this. It's so simple. It's so incredibly simple.
It's sheer arrogance on their part. What gives them the right to decide which washing machine you buy? This truly is authoritarian. Again, they may be hiding behind this idea of nudges or choices. But when you're being guilt-tripped, and when all these psychological tools are being used against you, really what choice is there? They play on our good natures. It's because we're good natured, it's because we are decent people that they are able to manipulate us in this way. Because if we weren't good people, none of these manipulative tools would work, right? You can't guilt trip someone who doesn't feel guilt. You can't make bad people feel bad about something because they don't have it in them to feel that way. Only good people could feel bad about making the wrong choice or doing something that puts them above others or before others. Like the guilt. People who don't feel guilt cannot be made to feel guilty. It only works because we are the kind of people that we are. And boy, do they know it. It's a shame they don't have the same emotions that they manipulate in us. I'm certainly not seeing any guilt from them.
To be fair, I'm not sure lizards have emotions.
Anyway, moving on. So we want to just talk a little bit more about nudge theory. This is a really great resource. This is a blog. Okay, I don't want to accept any of these cookies for obvious reasons. So the origin of nudge theory. I'm just going to read through this whole thing. It's quite a short document. Unless you want to take a paragraph each.
No, you can read it.
Okay. In 2017, the Nobel Prize in Economics was awarded to Richard Thaler, I'm going to guess, for his contributions to behavioural economics through nudge theory. Although its application has mainly been in government policy, its use isn't limited to that field. What is nudge theory in business and how can it be used by learning and development? Let's have a look. Auto-enrolment, that was the word I was trying to think of. So 77% of UK employees are now members of workplace pension schemes, up from 47%, which was in place before auto-enrolment. Now that you are automatically enrolled, you must deal with it.
It's much easier to make people enrolled.
Yes.
Than not. Well, I mean, I lost my train of thought as the words were coming out of my mouth.
Well, yes, because to enrol before you had to actually do something, take action, and that
it was an active choice.
Yeah, that required energy. Now you don't have to do anything to be enrolled. Now you have to do something to unenroll.
Basically, what I wanted to say was, whoop-de-doo, you forced people into a position, and then you're patting yourself on the back because the percentage of people who were in that position went up.
Yes, they've done nothing.
No kidding, Sherlock. That's literally what's going to happen. If you make somebody's choice for them, they're then going to take that choice. Simple.
And they're obviously going to say that it's still a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we've manipulated you into now taking the action, we've taken the action for you. Now you're in, whether you wanted to be in or not. It's now up to you, or rather it's your responsibility if you don't do anything about changing that.
Mm-hmm. But
they've taken the choice to join or not join away from you by making sure that you are joined whether you like it or not. Because your choice before was join or not join, now your choice is stay or leave. Stay means doing nothing, leave means requiring effort. It's very clever, very manipulative. Here's another one. 99% fat-free is more attractive to consumers than 1% fat. This is very clever marketing, actually, and it's not just the government that do this. You'll often see products that say no added sugar. They don't mention the sugar and rubbish that's already in it. They're just making it clear they haven't added any more. But sugar in the process, This added sugar is a very sneaky term. If you need sugar to make something, let's just make something up. An apple crumble. You add sugar to it, to the meal itself, and then you garnish it with sugar. You could make an apple crumble that's full of sugar and put no added sugar on the label. Because outside of the recipe itself, you've not added any sugar. See how very clever it is. What is a nudge? Simply put, nudges aim to influence the choices we make, but without taking away the power to choose. Take away the incentive, though, don't they? Nudges are beneficial as we don't always think and decide logically and consciously, weighing up all of the costs and benefits. Actually, the majority of our decisions are made instinctively and unconsciously. That's interesting, that phrasing there. Nudges are beneficial as we don't always think and decide logically. Too stupid. Therefore, in order to drive a positive change in people's behaviour, we need to tap into that instinctive way of thinking by, of course, doing it for you. I don't think that's particularly encouraging instinctive behaviour. The UK government has had a lot of practice at this. In fact, they even have a Behavioural Insights Team, also known as the Nudge Unit. One of their most successful pieces of work has been the Workplace Pension Scheme, NEST. The scheme changed the workplace pension into something that you opt out of, as you are now automatically enrolled, rather than something you have to opt into. The thinking behind this is that most people want to put money aside for their retirement, but didn't opt in because setting up a pension is seen as too much time and effort. And it's worked. I won't go through the stats, you've just seen those. As mentioned already, nudges aren't just applicable to behavioural economics. The psychology behind the theory can be applied to any situation where you are looking to enable change in people and shift behaviour. It's therefore a valuable piece of psychology to consider when designing a change programme. I don't like that word programme. It means that somebody is trying to program you. Don't like it at all. Should we have a quick look at the change programme? I didn't click on this before.
I don't remember seeing that earlier either.
Okay. People change and transformation is often complex, messy and hard to get right. Stress, discomfort and avoidance are all natural responses to large-scale changes. We're here to accelerate your change through aligned and engaged teams, and we have the experience and methodologies to provide it. Oh, this is about companies, so I'm going to come off of this. Let's go back to the other one. The change program is for companies.
Well, you say it's for companies, but the same techniques will still be used by government.
Well, that's true. Well, let's see what they're talking about here then. Maintaining the freedom of choice is key with nudge theory. Maintaining the illusion of choice, arguably, is key, not the actual freedom. Rather than trying to change people's behaviour through enforcement or punishment, encouragement, choice and enablement is at the centre of driving change.
It sounds like what you would do with a child.
Yes.
Or a dog, actually. It's much more in line with that, I think.
Positive reinforcement or negative.
Hmm.
Creating nudges is not a simple process. It's important to observe people's current behaviour before identifying which behaviours need changing.
Once again, notice, going back to what I said earlier on, it's as if these people know what you need to do.
Yeah.
And if you don't do what they want you to do, you're stupid. You're the one at fault.
Your behaviour needs to change. Not to benefit you, but because they don't like your current behaviour. Once you've spent time considering that, you'll be in a position to design your nudges, which largely fit into 3 categories. Perception nudges, which target the underlying perceptions of organisational behaviour to bring out a change in understanding and therefore a change in behaviour. Motivation nudges. These are needed when you want people to care about a change. One way of doing this is to reference other people's behaviours to highlight what is acceptable and desirable. We see that all the time, especially trying to convince you that a tiny minority is in fact the majority and to influence your behaviour. Ability and simplicity nudges are needed when people feel that it is too much effort to carry out a desired behaviour. It's important to enable people to change and make changes simple. The easier it is, the more likely people will carry it out. Now, we've already talked about the HMRC tax collection, or the tax on time collection. we've already talked about the 99% fat-free. The motivation nudge is talking about utility companies. Use the information collected from smart meters to tell the customers how their energy usage compares to their neighbours. Telling people that they use more energy than their neighbours has been found to motivate people to reduce their usage.
What happens if it's the opposite? What happens if you use less than your neighbours? Do you suddenly use more? Or do they lie to you and say, they still use less?
I would imagine if they're trying to get you to either take up a new deal or switch to them, they're hardly going to tell you that you already are on the lowest tariff and that you don't use much energy at all and that your neighbours are spending far more than you. Because you'd be like, well, cheers for that, thank you very much. Don't need to speak to you any longer then, do I? So perception nudges. Perception is basically changing the way you view things just by adjusting the wording used. Motivation is to try and coerce you into doing something because it's potentially perceived as being beneficial to you. Ability and simplicity nudges. This also works, as we were talking about with the pensions. Ability and simplicity. Because it does take a lot of effort to carry out a desired behaviour, it's much easier to opt you into something and then force you to put that effort into opting out. If you couldn't be bothered to opt in, you probably won't be bothered to opt out, and they win. They get you to stay into the thing that they've opted you into.
Exactly, they get you one way or another.
So yeah, workplace
this
pensions,
is a theme.
organs.
This is a theme that you're going to see time and time and time again with these people.
Right. So in conclusion, this is a very short document. To think like a Nobel Prize, when I'm not sure how that's relevant, and design your own nudges, you'll need to identify behaviours you need to change. So again, the arrogance of this. Mm-hmm. Work out what people's current behaviour is, decide which nudges to deploy, then test and evaluate. So this is, again, just treating people like guinea pigs. Identify the behaviours you need to change. I wonder how long this nudge unit sat in with the government during the initial lockdown period, or the initial announcement that the lockdowns would be taking place. I wonder how many hours and hours and hours they spent trying to work out whether people would actually go along with their plans or whether they would resist.
I don't even bet that was the questions they were asking. I bet it was, how do we make people do this?
Well, they may not have been the
again,
questions they
identify
asked.
the behaviours they needed to change. Well, they needed us to stay away from friends and family, and they needed us to stay in our homes. Work out what people's current behaviour is.
People spend a lot of time with people they love.
Currently, people live like normal human beings have done forever. Okay.
Well, not quite.
Number 3, decide what nudges to deploy. Well, we're going back to that mind space thing. If I can bring it up again here. Like messengers. We're heavily influenced by who communicates information. Well, they had them standing up in front of that little podium day in, day out.
Yes.
Incentives, we've covered that. The avoidance of loss. Norms, they made it appear that everybody was doing it. Defaults, go with the flow. Well, everybody was doing this, so I may as well.
I want to just come back to avoidance of loss. When a government essentially shackles a country and forces it to its knees financially and then uses fines as a punishment, no wonder people behave themselves, because that is a loss that most people just cannot afford to have.
Absolutely.
Avoidance of loss, whether it's loss of money, income, status, freedoms. How do they convince so many people? 3 weeks, was it 3 months to flatten the curve?
No, it was originally... it would have been 12 weeks. So
yeah,
yes,
so 3 months. 3 months to flatten the curve. This is how they persuaded people to go along with the lockdowns, because they gave you a deadline, they gave you an end date. Do this for just this period of time and it will all be over. Only it wasn't over. Then you had another promise. We'll just do this for a bit longer. Just wear the mask, just stay indoors, just stop seeing your relatives. Just lose your freedoms. It's all very temporary. Here's another end date. Oh dear, we've had to extend it. It's just for another week. It's just for another month. It's just for another year. Avoiding losses. This is a calculated decision on our part. Was it worth giving up freedom for a short amount of time in exchange for total freedom afterwards, except that total freedom will never ever be back in place, because in order to get that freedom back now, you've had to give up other freedoms. And we're not going to go into detail about the COVID passport, but that's just one way. I won't even mention the fact that your medical history is your private business and members of the public should not have access to it. But you're going to be wearing that on your sleeve now, aren't you? For everyone to see. Everyone's going to know whether or not you've been injected, I'm not going to use the V word, injected, because you will either have a COVID passport or you will not. That is your medical information out there in the public. If you have to use that passport to walk into your place of work, that means every person you work with knows whether or not you have had the injection. If you have to use it to access, I don't know, transport like a train station or a bus, that means a bus driver and station guards will be able to see that you have in fact had that injection. If you need to access it to go and buy some food for your shopping, that means that sales assistants, retail assistants get to see your medical history. To go into a pub or a restaurant, bar staff get to see your medical history. This is a massive infringement on your privacy and your right to privacy, but you know, hey ho. Right, let's have a look at who they work with, shall we? This independent from the government think tank. Quite a list here. Are there any particular you want to point out there, Jordan?
I'm rather interested in the asthma one, to be honest. I'm not sure what they could have done. That catch-22, we've looked into these people a little bit. They were the ones that we were planning to bring up. I'll just read off their front page. Catch-22 designs and delivers public services that build resilience and aspiration in people and communities.
Aspiration.
The thing that's weird about this is the name. Catch-22. That, I don't know, there's something very strange about that. Catch-22 is never a good thing. It's always a negative.
Catch-22 is essentially I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't, right?
Exactly. It's a really strange name for this. I can't work it out.
A social business.
Yeah, another one.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. I don't think that has any sort of legal standing.
Who calls themselves a business in their heading? I don't know. Anyway,
These people.
that's just one. Okay, let's have a look at the others. So, you know, the Cabinet Office, police forces. Don't even know what this foundation is. Should we have a quick look?
Always.
Oh, it's about children. Always makes me very suspicious.
Yeah. Fan when I see children's charities.
Urban 95. Vibrant cities. Where babies, toddlers and their families thrive. Oh, this seems to be a worldwide organisation. Brazil, Israel, India. I'm not sure how much of this is based in the UK, but...
No, we haven't looked at this one.
No, we haven't.
This was just a random one that we decided to pick.
Anyway...
young Joe.
Yeah, we're going to go on for hours if we go through all these. We will, we promise, go through all of these. So just to give you a quick glance, this is all the organisations that the Nudge team work with, or the Nudge unit. Lots of American towns, cities.
South Bend was interesting because that was where the mayor was from.
The mayor.
Yeah, the mayor whose name I'm slightly frightened to say. You know, the homosexual mayor who was running for president.
Oh, okay.
Is it Buttigieg? I don't know how to say the man's name.
I can't say it either. I know who you mean.
Apologies to him. He actually seemed like a decent-ish human being at times.
Yeah, I would have changed that name if I was going to be a public figure.
Oh! Point out the typo.
Oh, the civil service learning, or leering, which is rather amazing for an official heading for a government organisation.
I've never seen that before.
No, I never have.
I don't understand how that's even possible, considering they have like approved media databases.
Yes.
All they need to do is go in, take the picture they want, send it to whoever they need to send it to. I don't understand how that one's gone through. I've never seen that before.
They got this one right. So, yes, lots of government departments. I'm going to ignore the sort of foreign either companies or departments or anything I'm familiar with. I'm just going to focus on the UK at the moment. Department for Work and Pensions, Health, Foreign and Commonwealth Office, Financial Conduct Authority, Equality and Human Rights Commission. It's rather amazing how many of these. There's the Welsh one, Gig Cymru. I don't even know what that is.
NHS Wales.
NHS Wales. There you go. I should have read that, shouldn't I? Yeah, that will teach me not to pay attention. Greater Manchester Combined Authority, Health and Social Care Partnership, Gwent Police, HM Revenue and Customs, Treasury, Home Office. This is an independent group. It's fair to say that probably 99.9% of their work is for the government and the occasional bank there. King's College London.
Or private company. Bit of a shock. The Land and Property Service. I wonder what they use these people for.
Interesting. We'll definitely go through these. London Councils, plural. Just all of them then. The London Health Commission. Manchester City Council. The Metropolitan Police. Shocker. In fact, I would love to see what they do for the police. That's going to be an interesting one. Ministry... Oh, that's Singapore. Never mind. Nesta. Oh, the NHS, shocker. Nesta is an interesting one. We shall be covering Nesta in much more detail. Let's have a quick basic look at Nesta. They bring bold ideas to life. Wow.
These are another social company, if I remember rightly, aren't they?
Yes, indeed. I tell you what, let's stop on Nesta and let's have a look. Who do Nesta work with? International work. They've partnered with many foundations, including the Rockefeller Foundation, the BMW Foundation, the Kaufman Foundation, global companies such as Google, Santander and Pearson, and more than 30 national governments. No kidding. Let's have a look. So they do tend to work a lot with contributors from various other companies for articles and information. Let's have a look at some of those. USAID, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Global Giving, doesn't that sound just wonderful? Better Shelter, Social Finance, the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, the World Bank, the DFID and the UN, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance.
Oh, I never saw Gavi there earlier on. That's extremely interesting as well.
And wasn't there another one called COVAX?
COVAX was they're saying slightly different. They're getting vaccinations into Africa.
Yeah, but that's still a vaccine alliance, though, isn't it? It's another one.
Yes.
Humanitarian cash transfers just puzzles me. I don't really know what that stands for, but...
but the previous bit really sums it up. High-level panel.
Yes.
On humanitarian cash transfer. Like, what?
It does what it says on the tin.
What does that even mean?
It's a group of people, I guess, and they've got some high-level clearance. I don't know.
It's as if I was in charge of the naming.
Well, it's not very original, is it? What else have we got? Doctors Without Borders. The Institute of Development Studies. What does that even mean? And Elras, I can't even pronounce that. Humanitarian Innovation Fund. And, of course, Nesta, just to confirm again that they are working with themselves, which is great.
It's always good to have good internal communications.
It is. So Ben Ramalama Ding Dong there and Kirsten Bound are the authors of this particular document. These are all very vague references. How to fund innovation, how to organise for innovation. We're really going to delve rather deeply into these. Oh, they do work with multilateral organisations, bilateral donors, NGOs, companies and foundations. There you go. NGOs, what a wonderful invention. So there you go, everyone. That's our first little deep dive into BIT, or the Behavioural Insights Team. And we're going to be tackling, as part of this series, some of their experiments, and we're going to call them that for obvious reasons. And let's see how many of these experiments have actually applied to you, and whether you recall them taking place. A lot of these experiments, of course, will involve media, so things like advertising. Let's see how many brains spark up with, oh God, I remember that. I'm sure there will be many. Yes.
I'm really interested to tackle their keystone things, like their foundational documents. So things like that mind space and what was that other one we came across? East.
Oh yes, East is a very good one.
I'm very interested to get onto those. I have a very strong feeling that some of these documents are so in-depth and they're so long that the series may take a little bit of a break every now and then, but we'll circle back to it.
Absolutely. This is too important, I think, not to go into this in depth. And it means that it's going to take a fair while to get through everything. But as I always say, knowledge is power. If you're aware of what's being done to you, you are more empowered, I think, to resist it. And we're obviously going to build up to the obvious question is, what exactly have they done regarding the lockdowns and the current situation we're in? We are building up to that. Please don't worry, we will get there. That will probably take the most amount of research, and probably will be a few episodes just by itself. But we will get there. Some of the bigger things that we've experienced over the last, I don't know, maybe decade or two, the things that really resonate with people, we're definitely going to make those a primary focus. But we also want to really look into the tentacles of this organisation and see exactly who it's been working with and exactly what behaviours they want us to change so that it suits them. Very interesting times coming up indeed.
Thank you for watching the second episode. So far, all we've covered is who these people are. Going forward, we're going to be covering more on their ideas, where they've got them from, and eventually we're going to be getting into real life examples of the manipulations that they've conducted. Hope to see you then. Bye for now.